In this video, I want to take a minute to talk about how you see big O in the real world. So typically big O, well, I should say ideally, big O shows up in documentation. So you go and you have a library, right, and you're trying to see, hey, how much time does this function take to run? And in the documentation, it'll have big O somewhere. So sometimes it'll have it up at the top, and it'll say, okay, this is function is big O of n, right? Sometimes it'll be in the bottom. It'll say something like with big O n running time on size of an array. So it could be in different places. A lot of times just do Control F for big O of n. But one important thing here is to realize that a lot of times people don't really state big O the proper way. So in my example here, big O n, right, on size of an array, we're telling you, the person who wrote that documentation, right, is telling you how is the size of the problem defined. So apparently whatever method this documentation is for has input that happens to be an array. And how, based on the size of that array, that input will take a different, that method will take a different amount of time to run. That's great. That's what we should have, right? We should have some note somewhere that tells us what n is, right? What is it that I have to vary in order for the program to take a different amount of time to run? Here we know it's the size of an array. But if I'm looking at a function and all I have is a little note top says this is big O of n, well, then the question you should ask yourself is, what is n, right? N could be anything. What happens if that's a function that takes multiple arrays in or multiple lists in? That's going to be a little bit annoying because then you don't really know what is it that if I change it, it'll take less time or more time to run. In those cases, maybe you have to search around for a little bit. When you go and write documentation yourself, please do make a note of what exactly you're big O of, right? What does n represent? Is n the size of the array? Is it the size of an integer? Whatever it is, leave a note for the next person who has to maintain your code. By itself, big O of n really doesn't mean all that much, right, without declaring what n is. So keep that in mind. The other place or the other way you may see big O is kind of implicitly. So people will say stuff like, oh, they'll have this library function, right? And in that function, the description will say da 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 da, and then they'll say something like, this was implemented with merge sort, right? Or this was implemented with quick sort, or whatever. What that is really implying is that the runtime of that algorithm is going to be at least that of the sorting algorithm. So the sorting algorithm, like a sorting algorithm like merge sort, is actually going to be O of n log n. So basically what they're saying is, oh, hey, my algorithm takes at least O of n time. Takes at least O of log n time, right? Because if a function has some functionality in it, right, like it needs to call merge sort, well, then that function, is going to take at least as long as merge sort, plus time to do whatever work it wants to do on its own. So they're just sort of saying by implication, right? We're at least this slow, right? We take at least this much time. And in that case, right, that's where you're going to have to be aware of what is the running time for different standard algorithms. So you'll need to know, how long does quick sort take? How long does merge sort take? How long does insertion sort take? How long does selection sort take? You need to understand or you need to remember those so that when somebody tells you stuff like this, oh, this algorithm was implemented with this for the sorting step, you know what is the performance implication of it, right? What is the big O of it? Note though, these are somehow giving you like what is the minimum, right? Like it's going to take at least this much time. It's certainly possible that that function they've written has something that's a greater big O, and we'll talk about what that means later, than the sorting algorithm, right? So maybe it's even worse. But for sure, right, you at least have to do the work of that sort, so it'll be at least O of n log n or whatever you have.